Most people think a year is won in December, by achievements, by numbers, by results. But the truth is, a year is decided much earlier than that. Most people believe that a year is shaped by big decisions, dramatic moments, or major breakthroughs. But life rarely changes that way. Life changes quietly, almost invisibly. And often, it begins much earlier than we realize. January is not just the first month on the calendar. It is the emotional and mental tone setter of the entire year. Just like the first few minutes after you wake up decide how your day flows, the first few weeks decide how your year feels. When those early days are rushed, careless, or distracted, the rest of the year becomes a constant chase. Many people start January with excitement, but without awareness. They make long lists, big promises, and loud declarations. Yet within a few weeks, the energy fades. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack alignment. Speed without direction always leads to exhaustion. Winning January is not about doing extraordinary things. It is about doing ordinary things with sincerity, waking up a little earlier, being mindful of what enters your mind, choosing discipline when motivation disappears. It is about understanding that consistency is far more powerful than intensity. Often, people complain that the year feels heavy, stressful, and overwhelming. But pressure usually does not come from work itself. It comes from postponement, from delaying what needs to be done, from avoiding small corrections when they are easy. A January gives us a gentle space to correct our course before life demands it forcefully later. This month asks simple questions. How do you begin your day? How do you speak to yourself? What habits are you nurturing without noticing? Are you reacting to life or responding with awareness? These questions may seem small, but their answers quietly shape the months ahead. When habits are formed early, decisions become easier later. When priorities are clear early, distractions lose their power later. When your inner world is organized early, the outer chaos does not disturb you as much. Many people spend the year chasing success, chasing happiness, chasing peace. But what if you didn't have to chase at all? What if you simply walked with intention from the beginning? When your actions are aligned with your values, life naturally falls into rhythm. January is not about impressing others. It is about understanding yourself. It is not about proving your strength, but about building it silently. A year does not need perfection. It needs presence. You don't need to control the entire year. That responsibility is too heavy for anyone. You only need to take responsibility for today, and then tomorrow, and then the next day. That is how momentum is built quietly, patiently, faithfully. If you approach January with awareness, discipline, and honesty, the rest of the year begins to cooperate. You stop running behind time. You stop feeling late in life. Instead, you feel grounded. Because when the foundation is strong, the structure stands effortlessly. Win January with clarity, and the year doesn't need chasing. It simply follows. At the beginning of every year, there is a silent hope in the heart of every person. A hope that this year will be different. That things will improve. That life will finally move in the direction we have been waiting for. But hope alone does not shape a year. Awareness does. January arrives like a soft knock on the door. It does not force change. It only offers an opportunity. How we respond to that quiet invitation decides whether the year flows or becomes a struggle. Many people treat January casually, assuming there is plenty of time ahead, but time, when taken for granted, slips away unnoticed. The truth is, life does not demand dramatic transformation in the first month. It asks for sincerity. It asks for attention. It asks for small promises kept consistently. When we ignore these small commitments early, they return later as stress, regret, and fatigue. Most people spend the year reacting. Reacting to deadlines, reacting to problems, reacting to emotions. But January gives us a chance to shift from reaction to intention. To pause and ask ourselves what truly matters before the noise of the year becomes too loud. Discipline in January is not about strict routines or harsh rules. It is about kindness toward your future self. It is about choosing what supports your growth rather than what merely feels convenient. These choices may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they create stability. When the mind is scattered in the beginning, focus becomes difficult later. When habits are weak early, pressure becomes heavy later. But when you invest gently in structure at the start, life feels lighter as the months pass. Many people chase success as if it is running away from them. They hurry, they compare, they exhaust themselves. But success is not something to be hunted. It is something that grows when the soil is prepared. January is that soil. This month teaches us that progress does not need applause. Growth does not need validation. Some of the most powerful changes happen quietly, unseen by others, but deeply felt within. Instead of asking how much you can achieve this year, ask how present you can be. Instead of focusing on how fast you can move, focus on how steadily you can walk. A slow, conscious step taken every day will always reach further than a rushed sprint followed by burnout. The year does not become heavy suddenly. It becomes heavy when we carry unfinished intentions, broken routines, and ignored responsibilities from one month to the next. January allows us to travel light. When you begin the year with clarity, you do not panic when challenges appear. You respond with balance. When you begin with discipline, distractions lose their charm. When you begin with humility, learning becomes natural. You do not need to conquer the year. That idea itself creates pressure. You only need to align with it. When your thoughts, actions, and values move in the same direction, life feels less like a race and more like a journey. If January is lived with awareness, the year unfolds with ease. Not because problems disappear, but because you are prepared. And when preparation meets patience, the year does not need chasing. It walks beside you. Every year begins the same way for everyone, yet ends very differently for each person. The difference is not luck. It is not talent. It is not even opportunity. The difference lies in how consciously the beginning is lived. January is often misunderstood. People think it is a time to rush, to plan everything, to pressure themselves into becoming a new version overnight. But real growth does not happen through force. It happens through understanding. January is not asking you to run faster. It is asking you to walk with awareness. Most people feel tired by the middle of the year, not because life is too demanding, but because they started without grounding themselves. When the roots are weak, even a gentle wind feels like a storm. But when the foundation is strong, challenges become manageable. The first month gently exposes our patterns, how quickly we get distracted, how easily we postpone, how often we choose comfort over commitment. This awareness is not meant to judge us. It is meant to guide us, because awareness is the first step toward change. Winning January does not mean controlling your entire schedule. It means controlling your attention. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. And where your energy flows consistently, growth naturally happens. Many people wait for motivation before they act, but motivation is unreliable. Some days it shows up, many days it does not. Discipline, on the other hand, is quiet and dependable. January teaches us to rely less on excitement and more on consistency. This month reminds us that small actions repeated daily quietly shape destiny. A few minutes of reflection, a few moments of silence, a simple routine followed honestly. These are not dramatic, but they are powerful. Often people complain that the year feels rushed, but time does not move faster. We simply move through it without presence. January gives us permission to slow down mentally, even if life moves quickly around us. When you begin the year by listening to yourself, you reduce the noise of comparison. When you begin by setting inner priorities, outer distractions lose strength. And when you begin by respecting your own energy, burnout becomes less likely. The pressure to achieve everything creates anxiety, but clarity creates calm. January offers clarity. If we choose to receive it, it asks us to simplify rather than complicate, to focus rather than scatter. Life does not need us to be perfect. It needs us to be sincere. It needs us to show up even on days when results are invisible. Because results are often delayed, but effort is never wasted. As the months pass, the habits formed in January quietly work in the background. They support you when motivation fades. They guide you when decisions become difficult. They steady you when life feels uncertain. You do not need to chase the year with urgency. Urgency creates fear. Alignment creates flow. When your actions are aligned with your values, progress feels natural. January is not about predicting the future. It is about preparing yourself for it. When preparation meets patience, life becomes less stressful. And when the beginning is lived consciously, the rest of the year does not run away. It stays with you. At the start of every year, there is a quiet pause before life gathers speed. In that pause, January stands patiently, offering us a chance to choose how we want to live the months ahead. But most people rush past this moment. They are so eager to move forward that they forget to first become steady. January is not meant to be loud or dramatic. It is meant to be thoughtful. It is the month that gently asks us to observe ourselves. How do we begin our mornings? How do we handle distractions? How do we respond when things don't go as planned? These simple patterns, when left unnoticed, silently repeat themselves throughout the year. Many people believe that pressure creates progress, so they overload themselves with goals, schedules, and expectations. But pressure without clarity only creates anxiety. Real progress comes when effort is guided by understanding. January gives us time to build that understanding. This month reminds us that life is not improved by doing more, but by doing what truly matters. When we learn to prioritize early, we save ourselves from regret later. When we learn to manage our energy early, we don't feel drained as the year moves on. Often, people say the year passed too quickly. But the year does not pass us. We pass through it without presence. January invites us to slow down internally, even if responsibilities continue externally. It teaches us that being busy is not the same as being productive. The habits we ignore in the beginning slowly become the challenges we complain about later. A lack of routine becomes stress. A lack of focus becomes confusion. A lack of discipline becomes pressure. But January allows us to address these things gently before they grow heavy. Winning January does not mean achieving visible success. It means building invisible strength, strength of mind, strength of routine, strength of self-awareness. These are the qualities that support us when motivation disappears and circumstances change. Many people wait for the right mood to start. But the right mood rarely arrives on its own. Action creates mood. Discipline creates confidence. January teaches us to begin even when conditions are imperfect. When you start the year by honoring small commitments, trust in yourself grows. And when self-trust grows, decision-making becomes easier. You stop doubting every step. You stop comparing your pace with others. Life becomes lighter when you stop trying to control everything and start taking responsibility for what is in your hands today. January shows us that the future is not built in one day, but shaped by daily choices made quietly. Challenges will come no matter how well the year begins. But when you are grounded early, challenges do not shake you as easily. You respond instead of react. You learn instead of panic. The year does not need to be chased. Chasing creates fear of falling behind. Awareness creates a sense of direction. When you know where you are going, you don't rush blindly. January is not about becoming someone new overnight. It is about returning to what truly matters. When your actions reflect your values from the beginning, life starts to flow naturally. And when the beginning is lived with intention, the rest of the year feels less like a race and more like a journey. One step at a time, with calm, with clarity. The beginning of a year carries a unique energy, not because the calendar has changed, but because the mind becomes open to possibility. January arrives quietly, without demands, yet it holds immense influence over how the rest of the year unfolds. Those who recognize this do not rush, they reflect. Many people think progress begins with grand plans, but progress actually begins with awareness. January gives us a rare chance to observe our life without pressure, to notice our habits before they turn into patterns, to correct our direction before distance makes change difficult. Often, we underestimate the power of small beginnings. We believe big change requires big effort, but life works differently. A year is shaped by the things we do repeatedly, not occasionally. A January reminds us that consistency is more important than intensity. This month is not asking you to do everything right. It is asking you to do a few things sincerely. To wake up with purpose, even if motivation is missing. To be mindful of where your time goes. To choose growth over comfort, just a little more often than before. When we begin the year without structure, we spend the rest of it trying to regain control. But when we build simple routines early, life becomes easier to manage. Discipline does not limit freedom, it protects it. It gives direction to energy that would otherwise scatter. Many people feel exhausted by the end of the year, not because they worked too hard, but because they worked without alignment. They said yes when they meant no. They ignored their inner voice. January allows us to listen again. The pressure to achieve quickly often steals the joy of progress. But when we slow down mentally, even small steps feel meaningful. January teaches patience. It shows us that life is not a competition and growth cannot be rushed. When clarity is missing, distractions become powerful. But when clarity is present, distractions lose their charm. The first month offers clarity if we choose to seek it. It invites us to simplify, not complicate. We often chase the year because we feel late in life. But this feeling does not come from lack of time. It comes from lack of presence. January invites us back to the present moment, to focus on what is in our control today. When you invest in self-awareness early, emotional balance follows. When you invest in discipline early, confidence follows. When you invest in values early, decisions become easier. The year will bring challenges, uncertainty, and change. That is inevitable. But preparation reduces fear. When you are grounded from the beginning, you don't feel lost when things shift. You do not need to predict how the year will unfold. You only need to prepare yourself to handle whatever comes. January is that preparation. It is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming conscious, about choosing intention over impulse, presence over pressure. When you start the year with honesty and humility, life becomes less overwhelming. You stop chasing time. You stop chasing approval. You start walking with clarity. And when you walk with clarity from the beginning, the year does not escape you. It moves forward with you. So don't ask, what will this year give me? Ask instead, what kind of person will I become this year? Win January with intention, and you won't run behind time. Time will walk with you.